Hey everyone, Kyle from Andrew Hilton here, and they're ripping up the whole parking lot outside, which means that I'm in here drinking cider. And what a lineup we have for you. So there's no Strongbow, there's no Rock Creek cider, there's nothing, boring. We're going for some of the best and brightest in the Canadian cider industry, starting with Revel Cider, of course, by Tarek Ahmed, the Ontario cidery that really kicked off the Canadian cider revolution. No one does it better. That's why it's a little can, is their ciders tend to get up to $20 a unit pretty darn fast. So we're just doing one of the small ones. This is their Farmhouse cider, their classic, native, unfiltered cider. Really well done. That's our starting point. Jumping over to BC, we have Creek and Gully. This is their Flora, their field blend of apples. Now, we've had Creek and Gully before. We even had them on a tasting before, but it's a big 750 ml glass bottle. This is a 473 ml can. Alcohol at 7.6, just a big chunky lad of a cider. And then we move to Alberta. Core values and uncommon. For core values, we're doing Return of their Mack, the sweet-ish cider made with Macintosh apples. And from uncommon, well, we've had a lot of apples so far, being a cider tasting. But we're going to do their Haskap apples. So they use very small red berries called Haskaps to kind of change the dynamic of the cider. So it's fall. We're kind of out of summer beer season. Most of the new fall beers aren't out yet. I'm not yet going to put you folks through the hell of a pumpkin beer tasting. So here we are. Cider, September 29th, 6 o'clock. I'll see you there. Good evening, everyone. Kyle with Andrew Hilton here. Welcome to our, I think, second ever cider tasting. Now, we've done ciders as part of wine tastings once or twice before, but if memory serves, this is only the second dedicated cider tasting we've ever done. I don't think maybe the only one we've ever done that was just cans. I think the other one, I think we had bottles and things. So, welcome. Nice little 4-pack that we were able to do for $20, just barely. And we're going to be tasting 4 very, very different ciders. One from BC, 2 from the Calgary area, and 1 from Ontario. Now, we're talking about ciders, we're talking about one of 3 kind of core styles. I think the cider style that most people will be familiar with is English cider, British cider. These are typified by ciders like Strongbow, Westford, Stowford Press. The alcohol tends to be between 4 and 5%. It tends to be bright, very clean. They do not use a natural yeast for it. And this is a cider that you would have on draft. It's also here in Canada, very much the style that most of your commercial cider makers, be they Village or Rock Creek, which is made by Big Rock, they're all kind of aiming for this style of cider. This is what they're going for. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have French ciders. These are very often made in Brittany. Do we know where this one is made? Normandy. Okay. So we're generally in northern France. We're generally relatively close to the Atlantic Ocean. These are very, very different. These are ciders made very much in the style of a wine. They're most often made with wild yeast. Very often the cider will actually be fermented with the yeast that is stuck to the bloom or the waxy outer coating of the apple. And they will be very wild. They'll be very often spontaneously fermented in the bottle, very much like a champagne or a pet nat. And they tend to be a little higher in alcohol, anywhere between 5 and I've seen them as high as, say, 8%. This is actually the style that at least 3 of our ciders are kind of going for. Not so much this one, but certainly these 2 are very much going for that. Finally, and this is actually the big one that I learned, the Alco Pop ciders. These would be things like Growers, Okanagan Extra, the 5 to 7%, comes in a 6-pack. You're not buying it for its long history of wild yeast usage. You're using it because it's blackberry and you feel like blackberry tonight. Fun thing, the big thing I learned with this was actually I was fully expecting when I picked this up for the ingredients to be like natural and artificial flavors, filtered water, grain alcohol. No, actually for growers, they actually use real cider. There's a horrifying list of artificial colorings in the ingredients list, like Allure Red and Brilliant Blue and the ominous FCF. But the actual originals are like cider and natural flavor. So an apple cider base and the natural flavor would be some sort of blackberry extract. So well done, growers. I'm still not convinced by your artificial colorings, but you know what? That's less bad than I thought. And I would actually chalk that up to the fact that tree drop apples, so apples that aren't saleable as fruit in a store or even to be sold to like large manufacturing concerns to make, say, apple pie filling that'll just be canned, where the exterior appearance of the apple isn't quite as important. Cider apples tend to be lower on the grade. They're not the grade AAA apples. They're probably not the grade A apples, at least not for most cider houses. They tend to be some of the lower down qualities, the Bs, the Cs, the grade F, mostly circus animals, some filters, sort of, that caliber of apples is often what will go into ciders, and as a result, the raw ingredients are very, very cheap.
Nice.
Nicely done, Aaron. But it didn't break, so that's a plus. But yeah, the quality of apples that are used for this are so cheap that it's actually fine to make it's actually cheaper to make a cider out of it than to actually use vodka. I also realized I forgot to open the comments here, so forgive me, everyone. I have to do that now. Shut up, Aaron. It's fine. Today's just been a bit of a runaway overall. Oh wow, we have a lot of comments. Yes, unfortunately, even our virtual side is under construction. It's been going great. Behavior, it's a pumpkin tasting. We might get to that anyway. I mean, I do just hate myself that much. Can conditioned, yes, there is most definitely a can conditioned cider. We'll be getting to that in a second. So the styles I said were British, French, or English, I guess more proper, French, and kind of the Alco pop style, or the RTD category, as they've now started calling coolers, because they don't like calling coolers anymore. Why is the cider pop so mild compared to the real cider? Because the cider, with these, they're going to maximize the apple flavor. They're trying to maximize the yeast flavor. With this, they're using the cider as kind of a very sterile, very clean backdrop. I would imagine that after the cider is made here, just like at Big Rock, it's run through a very high pressure diatomaceous earth filter. The purpose here to strip as much flavor out as they can, leaving you with something very bright, very clean, nice fresh acid, overall pleasant apple character, but there's not a lot of subtlety to it, so that you can then overlay blackberry or cherry or mango pineapple or whatever you're going to make your grower's flavor of the month. The big characterful yeast and apple notes, they've been quite deliberately stripped away just so that you have that very neutral, very easy to work with base cider to add your other flavorings on top of. And I don't think that's a good or bad thing in this case. I think for something like growers, where if you're buying blackberry, you just want to taste the blackberry, and if you're buying the cherry, you want to taste the cherry, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing here. Okay, so we are going to start with Creek and Gully out of BC. Now this is the Flora, and this cider changes year to year to year. You'll notice that it is very gently carbonated, and it says to shake and drink cold from the can. Aaron, do you want any cider tonight?
Yes, please.
Okay, good. Because I was just about to take a slug from the can, and I realized that that probably wouldn't be helpful.
Thank you.
There we are. Can confirm. Tastes pretty good out of the can. All right, moving on. Like I said, Flora is a field blend. It changes year to year to year. How they explain it on the website is basically there's about 18 different types of apples that they grow at Creek and Gully. Each of the different ciders they make every year, be it their pet nat or what have you, they have a very particular blend that they end up working with. But there's always some apples that, are very high quality that they do want to work with, but just don't fit nicely into one of their predetermined blends they've decided they're going to make. So this is kind of a catch-all of everything else that goes into it. This year, apparently it is mostly Macintosh apple, which we will get back to in a minute. And the rest is a variety of other things that I can't remember off the top of my head. But with 18 different apple varieties, I'm certainly not going to remember them all, mostly because I haven't heard of most of them before. So I would probably say like a light shake. I'm going to give it one of these kind of swirly fake shakes and see how that goes. I think I'm just trying to introduce a little bit of some cloudiness and some yeast in there. That's fun. I just realized we basically killed a entire can of cider and haven't eaten today. This is going to go well. So this one, again, what are we looking at here? Can conditions. So the cider went into the can absolutely still. The natural yeast that was in the cider re-fermented it in can. It is wild fermented. It's made from a field blend. What style are they going for? Pretty clearly the French style, because this will also be re-fermented in bottle conditioned. You know, if you give it a shake, I'm not sure if the camera's going to be able to pick that up, but there are definitely some floaties in there. You can pick that up? All right, good. I wasn't doubting the camera, I was doubting my ability to get the light to catch it properly.
Nailed it.
Hooray. So, yeah, they're definitely going for the French style here. A little bit of history on this. This isn't my find. I did not find this one. This was actually Steel and Vines brought in a flat of this for themselves, and we ended up kind of nicking a can out of the flat. We didn't charge them for it, but they got a flat of 23, not 24. It was really exceptionally good, so we immediately brought it in, and this was probably the cider that was kind of the impetus for doing a cider week, was I was really excited about how good this was. The carbonation here is really, really gentle, but I actually appreciate that because I'm not getting that big mouth-filling, almost tongue-scraping, carbonated sort of a character. This just lets the kind of the cider spread across your tongue. You get all of those really neat autolytic characteristics from in-can conditioning. So you get some of those bready, yeasty, kind of brioche sorts of characteristics coming from the autolysis of the yeast. You definitely get a very broad appreciation of different types of apples. I wouldn't say this is clean Granny Smith. I wouldn't say this is a, very sweet red delicious, a type of apple I absolutely can't stand. I actually get a very broad, different taste of apples. It really does taste like all of the parts of the fruit in one, and the comments are just not cooperating with me.
What's your last one?
Oh, they disappear after I don't look at my phone for 10 seconds.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I also prefer a true French cider up to a point, but I will also say that being as my wife doesn't drink, I don't know if I really want to drink 750 mils of cider in one sitting that I would have to with a French cider. I kind of like that I can just have like a tall boy, especially at 7.6. I don't really feel I need more than a tall boy of that in one sitting. I'm just going to enjoy this one because I really like how this is coming off. I don't know. So in terms of order, when we get to this, you'll all agree this had to be last. I initially had this last because it has the purple berries added, but it's actually doesn't have the sweetness of the last one. These two I think could have gone either way. I got so much more snap out of the time and place. I'm happier with it this way. Do you need to pay packaged on dates? With ciders, I would. Less so with something like this where it's can conditioned, but Devin and I recently brought in a pet nat, and I think you'll now find it in our clearance rack. It was a really good pet nat. It was Chardonnay from a house I trust, totally wild fermented, 100% organic, done really, really well. But when it got here, like 2 weeks ago, it was a 2017, and it was just plain tired. For something like this, all of these nice, happy, lively, fresh fruit notes, they're not going to age very well. I think that those autolytic characters, those bread and yeast and brioche characters, they are going to build with time. But you run two risks. One, the can simply overcarbonates and detonates, which you occasionally see as a home brewer, and very occasionally you'll actually see that happen here in the store. I forget what happened. There was a beer years and years ago that actually every single can just like completely bloated up so that you couldn't squeeze it. That's a risk here, but by and large, it's one of those things like, say, a Beaujolais. Could it age? Sure. I mean, it might. It's certainly going to be different in a year and a half. Is it going to be better? Odds are against it. It might. I mean, I've often told the story. My grandfather chucked some Beaujolais Nouveau in his wine cellar, and it apparently was fine 10 years later, even good. But that's a nice story, but it's not really what you're supposed to do with Beaujolais Nouveau either. Are we supposed to shake them all? No, I don't think you're supposed to shake them all, especially if, I've kind of already opened all of mine, so shaking them is going to be very difficult. Is this cider still in stock? Yes, I have at least another flat of this in the store. So this is something that I'm hoping we'll have at least for another couple of months. But like anything from Creek and Gully, they don't make very much. It tends to be fairly limited. Yeah, it's... Aaron, would you pour that out for me? I'm actually slightly allergic to that, I've just realized.
Really?
Yep.
That's fun. Why?
Probably one of the wild yeasts. I do occasionally react to things. And will you rinse the glasses
What's
too for me?
happening to you?
My skin's itchy. Very, very itchy everywhere.
Oh my god.
Yep, it happens. It has been known to happen. So that's good. That's very good.
So that's not your number one.
I mean, it might be. It's
Won't be
absolutely delicious. Let's just set that out over there for safety so I don't accidentally drink more. Let's move on, shall we? So this is Revel Cider. This is the cider maker. Basically, the entire bottom fridge of the entire bottom shelf of our front fridge is very often the Revel Ciders. They make unbelievable ciders, mostly in the 750ml glass bottles, occasionally in smaller bottles, occasionally in cans. The only ones that we get consistently in cans are the Time and Place and their Hibiscus Perry. Time and Place is, again, just like the Creek and Gully. It's a farmyard or farmhouse cider, wild yeast, blend of apples. Benadryl handy. I used to keep it around because occasionally I'd have a reaction. I bet it's been 5 or 6 years since I've had an allergic reaction to a wine or a champagne or a cider. So no, I don't have it around anymore. But I'll be fine. It's never so severe that it's a problem. But yeah, I'm just going to be really uncomfortable for the rest of the night. It's going to be great.
An EpiPen for you.
No, it's not. It's not that bad.
It's not.
No, hopefully not.
Anaphylactic.
Well, you know what? If there's anaphylactic shock, we'll have another moment for the blooper reel, won't we? It'll be all the things, and then Kyle dies, and that's the blooper reel.
Ambulance cam.
Yeah. This is cemetery. Thanks, Jeremy. Love you too, buddy. No putting filters on me. No, I'm fine. You can probably tell I'm very itchy, but I'm fine. Okay, let's try and pull this. This has just not been my day the entire day. Let's pull this together. We still have 2 promos to shoot after this, for crying out loud.
I blew the butt out of my pants too.
You blew the butt out of your pants? Is that why you haven't moved off that stool?
Partially.
Partially? The other parts you're just lazy?
Just lazy.
So this is like the Saison beer in concept. Yes, it absolutely is. Very often you would have field blends like this because some apple varieties would bud very early and would be susceptible to an early frost. Some apples would have a much longer growing season than some others, and so would be susceptible to a late frost. Some very high acid varieties that would want harvesting in, say, early fall, like, say, the equivalent of a Granny Smith. If you had just a bakingly hot summer, those apples just, they wouldn't taste proper. They wouldn't have the acidity, they wouldn't have the life. So by planting, again, this is a little more historically true, but it's also true today, by planting a variety of apples, almost no matter what climate conditions you got, barring a complete massive hailstorm at the tail end of August that wiped out everything, no matter what you got, whether it was a spring frost or an early fall frost or a hot year or a cold year, you would always have some apples that suited. You would always have the more reliable ones, but you might plant some really special ones that you really loved, that you needed a early spring and a late fall, and you just needed perfect conditions, but when you got that, you would make just this incredible cider. So that tends to be the idea of field blends, which is similar to Saison in the sense that it was what you had, which was dependent on the climate conditions that year. I am not doing well. Pairing it with lettuce wraps, blue cheese, veggies. Yeah, that works just fine. I think that's actually a great pairing. Revel started all. Yes, they did. So Revel started this whole ball rolling, I believe in about 2013 in Ontario. Up to that point, I can't think of another cidery that was doing anything like this. Like, Core Values is like the last 2 years. Uncommon's been open maybe 3. Creek and Gully, I think, is 5 years old. Revel Cider, in terms of the quality that they've been doing, using no filtration, using native yeast, they actually make a cider that we actually had in the shop. We got 1 case this year that was made from one of like 3 apple trees for this particular variety in all of Canada, and that particular variety only crops every other year. So every 2 years they make 3 apple trees worth of this cider, and then there's no more for the world. Absolutely incredible stuff. But they were really the first ones to start diving into that. And they also do I think we're out of it now. They did a cider called Strawberry Wisp, which used fresh strawberries as well as apple cider. And then they actually blended back basically something very much like a balsamic vinegar or an apple-based vinegar, or maybe an apple cider vinegar, you idiot, because it's an apple cider. They blended that back in and created something that was very tart and very, very different. And yeah, number 2, this is why we're doing it after the Creek and Gully, even though it is a little higher in alcohol than this one is at 7.6 versus 6 flat. I'm dying here.
Do you need a...
No, I'm all right. I'm gonna get through. Just I am not having a good time. I've lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Give me just a moment here.
Here, I'll cut to the cans. There we go.
There we go. Okay, we're back. Let's try this again. So why did I do the Revel Cider after the Creek and Gully? It's because of how tart this is and how big this is. Even though it's lower in alcohol, this has got so much snappy wild yeast character. Even though they're both made with wild yeast, this one just focuses on that yeast character so heavily that I don't think it could be before the Creek and Gully. I think this would come off as too soft. I don't believe that the Revel is actually can conditioned, just because it's a little more carbonated than I would expect from a can conditioned cider, but I'm always happy to be proven wrong. It's also aged on some apple pomace just to extract some tannin and to give it that little bit of extra grip. I also think that tannin from the apple pomace is the other reason why this is so much bigger than Creek and Gully. There's not a chance because I've had this pretty regularly. All of this I had was about 1/5 of a can shared with 4 other people. I've had cans of this to myself on several occasions, so I know this is safe. Which I can't say about Return of the Mack, which is also wild fermented. I think I'm gonna have a very, very tiny sip of that for safety's sake. Ooh. Dark brown apple juice used to get in cartons. I don't know if I remember that, but that sounds fascinating. Do you remember like a dark brown apple juice that used to come in cartons? I don't.
Yeah, totally.
Do you?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. What was it called?
Apple juice.
Okay, apple juice it is then.
Yeah, it was really like natural and rich though. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of pulp and shit in it.
I think my parents bought like Minute Maids, so
Yeah.
less so. Less so for me. Okay, moving on. Uncommon. This was, I think for us, the second of these ciders that we brought in. We've been carrying Revel, I think, for 3 years now. Uncommon for about 1.5 years, and then these two relatively brand new. This is their Haskap apple cider. Haskap is a bluish to purple berry, which is actually part of the honeysuckle family. In this, it kind of gives it the lovely kind of pinky purple color, but it also has just a lovely tartness that's not quite currant, it's not quite blueberry, it's very much its own thing. We could have done their dry hop cider, we could have done their dry apple cider, but I didn't want everything to just taste so much like apples. I wanted to have something that was a bit different just to break this up. I'm gonna have bloody hives if I don't already. I can already tell.
Is this another one?
No, it's fine. It's just I'm still reacting. We do not, in fact, have an EMT team. We have Aaron. and we have
No,
yeah,
it's just us.
just us. Yeah, that's it.
I was St. John's ambulance certified 15 years ago.
Well, that's helpful. Yeah, we got that. We have a naloxone kit. Not really helpful in this circumstance, but you know.
We could try it.
We And for anyone watching this tasting for the first time, I'm so very, very sorry. Normally I don't have an allergic reaction to the very first thing we taste and get horribly sidetracked. I mean, we get horribly sidetracked anyway, but not like this. So, what am I getting here? I get blueberries, I get pomegranates. You should really get in on this, actually. This is delicious.
Give it to me. Blueberries, nice color.
It does have a pretty color, doesn't it? Yeah.
Sorry. Blueberries, pomegranates, what are you saying?
Blueberries, pomegranates. I mean, I do get the apples, but let's be clear, like, the apple is not the showpiece here. This, again, I don't want to refer back to the growers necessarily, but when I said, well, why would you have the cider be so clean? Why would you have the cider be a bit of a background note? Because you want the other ingredient to shine through. Now, Uncommon does predominantly use wild yeasts, but again, I've had this a few times before. They do tend to be, you know, very experimental, very pushing the boundaries. They do a lot of seasonals, unfortunately, that we don't get. The one seasonal we do get from Uncommon actually is we get their Calgary Harvest or YYC Harvest cider, where they literally go around to people's houses and invite people to bring in their apples, crab apples, whatever. Just if you grew apples in your yard, pick them and drop them off at Uncommon, and they make this whole like reflection of apples in Calgary cider, which is absolutely wonderful. But going back to my earlier note, here I think they want the Haskap to be the focus. They want this bright red berry and blueberry notes sort of right at the fore, dominating the cider. The apple's certainly there, but I think the Haskaps here really steal the show. Rub myself in crown to mouth, then I'm sticky and also green. I feel like that's making the problem worse, not better. And I'm not sure they're using real mint in McGuinness creme de menthe. I've a strong suspicion that they are not. I think it's about as real mint as my toothpaste at home. Still would work better than ivermectin, that's true. And I guess maybe I'm at a disadvantage. Megan says she gets cherry more than Haskap. I've never actually had a Haskap. I've had Haskap in this cider. There was a brewery that did a Haskap wheat ale. This was a couple, 3 years ago. I can't remember where I had it. But I've never actually had Haskaps. I've had them in cider. I've had them in beer. I've never just had the fruit. So you've got one up on me there. I've never actually had Haskaps straight up. There's also a real honeyed note to this, isn't there? Maybe it's just because I said honeysuckle and now honeysuckle, but I get a real like wild honey character on this. I also get something vaguely tea-like, like orange pico somehow. Either that or my body is slowly going into anaphylactic shock and now I'm hallucinating. One of those two things is true.
That's way sweeter.
It is much sweeter, and it's by no means the sweetest thing we're going to taste.
Crazy.
I would point out that I think this is done, of the ciders on the table, much more in the English style. So the yeast is in the background. The apple varieties used are a little less important. Here we're going for something clean, bright, and dry. I certainly wouldn't put this in the alcopop level, but I would put this in the English influence camp. And I appreciate that, John, but I'm actually okay. I am very itchy, but I've had an allergic reaction from actually a New Zealand Riesling of all things, where it actually did get to the point where my throat started closing. I would definitely stop the tasting if that was going on. I'm fine. I'm just very itchy and more than a little distracted by it. So, no, if it becomes in any way a threat, I will definitely stop the tasting, but I'm fine, just very uncomfortable. Okay, so Aaron is off next week, so no events at all next week. which of course is different than the, hey, we're going to have a wine tasting next Friday that I may have told some people. So oops. However, we will be right back at it 2 Wednesdays from today. And we're going to do a little brewery profile here. We are going to be doing Familia. These folks are in Pigeon Lake, Alberta. They make 3 different beers. And I got twigged onto these in a really funny way, actually. On Sunday, I was doing my fantasy hockey draft online, and one of my friends was actually saying that this was their new favorite brewery going. So thank you for the tip, Jordan. We're going to do 3 beers from them because that's all they have in Connect right now. We have their Humble Summer Golden Ale. We have their Easy Walk, Long Walk Creek Pale Ale. And finally, we have the Hazy Morning New England Pale Ale. So New England Pale, Creek Pale Ale, and then finally like a just a classic Golden Ale. I really like trying kind of the entry level for every brewery, so we're going to do that here. And then, well, we are going to get properly into stouts. I just picked up Fat Sherpa yesterday from Establishment, so that will be finding its way into a tasting in the next few weeks. We are at least going to do some pumpkin beer, purely and entirely to annoy Mike Malloy, because he hates it so much. So that will be coming. And this is, you said October the 15th? October the 13th.
It's the 13th and 15th.
13th.
Yeah.
Perfect. 13th for beer tasting.
Nope, it's, I'm sorry, we're right.
We're right? Okay. So that is October 13th. October the 15th, we're going to do a wine tasting, which will be very fun. Haven't done one of those in bloody ages.
That rules.
So we're going to do a little bit of an easing into fall, you know, a little bit of white, saying goodbye to rosé for the year, and then some lighter fall reds. So we're going to talk about some of my favorite parts of France. We're going to talk about the Nantais, which is the mouth of the Loire River, right going into the Atlantic. The primary grape grown here is Melon. And just like the Creek and Gully here, which I'm so allergic to, the big focus here is on that autolytic character. So you're aging the wine on its lees. You're getting these nutty, spicy, bready characters out of the yeast lees, and it makes the wine so much more interesting. Melon on its own kind of tastes like a less interesting Pinot Gris, which when it's not made very interesting already tastes like nothing. But when you add in that 8 months of kind of lees aging, it really ramps up the quality. Then we're going to go to the southern part of Burgundy, and we're going to talk Beaujolais. And I've got 3 very, very different wines, all from Beaujolais, so these are going to be based in Gamay. Beaujolais Rosé. This is a fun one. This shipment that I had booked, again, COVID shipping issues, I'd booked this to be here about the tail end of April, start of May. You know, 15 cases of Beaujolais Rosé. How perfect for summer 2021. Won't that be something we've put a big display of right up at the counter? Sell 15 cases of something really fun. Yeah, got here August 28th. Great. So yes, this is our 15 cases of Beaujolais Rosé that we don't really have a great idea of what to do with, but the wine absolutely rocks, so we're going to taste it. And then we're going to talk about the 2 schools of Beaujolais, the very light, fluffy, and friendly, and the very, very serious. So what we're going to dig into here is a process known as carbonic maceration. This is basically fermenting the grapes without crushing them in the absence of oxygen. They will actually start fermenting inside their own skins, and that's where you get that bubblegummy, tropical, fruity, purple, like purple slurpy sort of characteristics that can come off Beaujolais. But if you don't do that and you treat it very much more like a standard Burgundian Pinot Noir, you get standard Burgundian Pinot Noir characters. You get spice, you get cherries, you get granite, you get mineral, you get really interesting, like more Burgundian styles. So these are 2 wines that on our shelves, I think they sell for like $1 apart in price. I think one's $23.95, one's $24.95. But they're so different. They're miles apart in their approach, and it's all about how they're made. Same vintage, right? I'm pretty sure I checked that. Yes, I did. Both 2018, both from Beaujolais, both made from Gamay. Same winemaker, same basically everything, but they're made differently and they taste apples and oranges different, and we're going to talk about why. So that is coming up October the 15th.
Nice.
So let us roll on. Ooh, Pivot makes a cool Haskap liqueur. I'd be into that. Just quickly running down. Perfect. Yes, Blindman did release their wet and dry hop double IPA, and I have that ordered for this Friday. So that will be coming in. I should not have poured that much because I don't know if I'm allergic to it yet. Ooh, new exclusive Pinot for fall too. That'll be super fun.
Thanks, Devin.
Thanks, Devin. Okay, so this is by Core Values. Where these folks are and where they are brewed, or rather fermented or made, is really interesting. So they list an address in Canmore on the can. If you look them up online, they show up in like this strip mall in a weird part of Calgary I've never been to before. I've heard rumors that they do all of their work at Uncommon. I don't really know where these folks are doing their work, but they're doing it really, really interesting. They're doing a wild ferment. And this is the return of the Mack, so they're using almost exclusively Macintosh apples. And unlike everything else here, you know, not like Stillford Press, not like the French ciders, not like anything else we've done, maybe a bit of a nod more towards Growers or even Summersby, this is made semi-dry. So we've got some sweetness here. Not a lot, but some, and it really stands out and it completely changes the aspect of the cider. For one, the apple character here, more than anything, it reminds me of applesauce. And maybe that's just because Macintosh apples are used for applesauce or what have you, but to me this smells like applesauce, that like good homemade applesauce that I'd have with like pork roast or something like that. Yeah, big straight apples right in your face. Yes, this uses a wild yeast. Yes, this does all the cool French ideas. Not in can fermented, I don't believe, but it has all the other hallmarks. But because it's done semi-sweet, it's just so much bigger and fatter and richer. It's huge in your mouth. I believe this is actually the lowest alcohol cider. Yeah, 6.1. This is the lowest alcohol cider on the table. And yet it's the largest in the mouth, at least for me, in terms of presence. It's just big. I can still smell and taste, although I am already losing my voice. I can feel it going, so that's good. That's a promising sign. Well, we can mark this one down in the blooper reel, the tasting where Kyle got hives. Awesome. No, not yet. I'm all right so far.
Is it good?
It's very good. It's so different. Like all of these were all about, you know, the fresh apple, like freshly plucked off the tree. This to me is more like applesauce or cooked apple or even apple juice. Like this tastes like apples after something's been done to them. This tastes, processed sounds like a bad word, but like cooked or canned or in a pie.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, Devin, I am wildly allergic to the Creek and Gully Flora. Like, allergic. So that went well. I had a giant glass of it because I liked it so much, and I got about 3/4 of the way through that glass before I realized that I was very itchy and I could feel my ear canals closing. So this has gone very well in general. Yeah, I like this one. It's so different. It's so completely different. How the hell do you... Well, I mean, number 4. Just, no. Dead last. Dead last with a bullet because it's making me feel awful. But as the other 3... Okay, in terms of flavor, that's probably my number 2. So, purely on flavor, I'm not allergic to it and angry at it. I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, with me being allergic to it. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can never have this again, which is a shame because I absolutely loved it. Got a couple of 3s right leading the way. The Uncommon's right at the top. That's awesome. I love when people disagree with me. Ooh, yeah. Like overripe apples in a certain way. I can get behind that. And yeah, they are all so different. And the problem is if all of your experience with apple cider to this point has been the Alco Pops or Somersby, which tastes like green Jolly Ranchers, or Stoford or Bulford or Strongbow or the Weston or the 10,000 other brands, Magners, that all taste exactly the damn same. All you think cider is either Strongbow clones, bad Strongbow clones, or kind of growers or Okanagan Extra, which are very heavily flavored ciders. Or Somersby, which is just terrible. But it is actually 100% cider. I did actually check, because before I grabbed the growers, I was going to make fun of Somersby, and then it was 100% cider, so I didn't. It's 100% cider, it's just terrible. But yeah, if all you've ever had is Stoford Press, I mean, for still, I think about $5 a can, you can get Creek and Gully, you can get Revel, you can get Uncommon, you can get Core Values. These are all things that are made here in Canada that are made really, really well. You know, they don't have the branding of a Strongbow, obviously, but there's just so much variety in what I think a lot of people, they had Strongbow when they were 21. It tasted broadly like apples. They decided, yep, I've had cider, it wasn't for me, I'm done. And I think that's a mistake. Unless you're allergic like I am, cider can be a lot of fun to explore. It's still a lot of fun for me, albeit more cautiously than I was tonight. Yeah, there's so much more to see in cider, and even something in the flavored category like the Uncommon. I mean, that was John and Marina's #1 with a bullet. That's fantastic. You want to experiment and play around a bit. We could have done a dry hop cider, so cider as IPA. I think those are really neat too. I love how different things are, and I love how playful Revel and Creek and Gully and the new Alberta offerings are starting to get, whether it be an all Alberta or an all Calgary cider from Uncommon. We can't really talk too much about like new crazy things these folks have done, because they've just gotten started. So. Who do we have? Craig has #3 as his first one too. Lots of 3. I love seeing 3s, 4s. Yeah, I love seeing this. 4 last is wrong. And we might need to get a cider as guest. Yes, we definitely do.
Cider is a guest.
Yeah, cider maker is a guest. Yeah.
Cider maker.
Yeah, a ciderer.
A ciderer. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I am going to call it there, purely because I just want to go and scratch for like the next 45 minutes as Aaron takes down the camera equipment all alone. So, on October the 13th, we will see you for Familia as well as the Phillips, a little bit of exploration of a brewery from Pigeon Lake. And on October the 15th, the Friday night, we will see you for 3 different Beaujolais, all done very different ways, as well as a Muscadet. So, covered in hives and itchily yours, I'm Kyle with Andrew Hilton. This has been Aaron.
Hi.
And this has been a lot more fun for all of you than me. So, have a wonderful night.